The tragic mass shooting last month at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, which left 17 dead, has brought the issue of gun violence and gun control to the forefront of the national discussion. Last night, we heard from some local students who attended the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. this past weekend, which called for stricter gun laws. But many gun owners have a different view. I sat down with Jim Wallace, Executive Director of the Gun Owners Action League, to discuss his thoughts on the march in Washington and on gun laws.
The sad thing is, and I understand the kids are grieving, they're emotional, they should be. That was a horrible incident. But, one of the things we have to stop arguing about is the thing. If you look at the AR, that platform has been in civilian hands for over 60 years.
It is illegal here in Massachusetts, though.
Well, that's up to some contention right now, and that's why there's some lawsuits about it. So, but if you look at the number of people who own these things across the country, estimated 10 million people own these kind of rifles and do so very legally. They don't harm anybody. They go to the range. They do the thing. The common denominator is not the gun. It's the individual who's very mentally ill and probably shouldn't even be walking amongst us. The argument is, well, they shouldn't have access to an assault weapon. They probably shouldn't have access to us. Now, if you talk to the experts about mental health, which I have in detail ever since Newtown, they'll tell you that whatever the number is, 99.9% of people with mental illness, even if it's severe, are not a public safety threat. And they're right. But we have to come to grips as a society that there is a very small number of people who just simply can't be treated, no matter how much medication and counseling you give them, and shouldn't be walking amongst us, because then you get what we saw in Austin. Still a very mentally ill person.
To the bombings that took place there. Yeah,
sure.
To your point about mental health, when you look at licensing here in Massachusetts, it's 6 years, right? Once you have your firearms license, 6-year renewal process.
Yep.
Is there room? Do you think that should be a shorter window then? To your point about mental health, have this checked every 2 years, every 3 years. Even a license to drive is every 5 years. Should that window be shorter?
Well, first of all, you look at a license to drive, that's a privilege versus a civil right. But Massachusetts, we've actually worked very hard to make sure the background check systems are being improved. As a matter of fact, I got word just a few weeks ago that they weren't where we thought they were, so we're back working on them again. But in Massachusetts, your license can be pulled at a moment's notice. So if you actually are committed against your will, it's called Section 12 in Massachusetts, or 35. 35 is more for substance abuse, but they do cross.
Very specific.
Right, they do cross, but your license can be pulled on a moment's notice. Your guns are confiscated on a moment's notice. So there's no reason to go through a license renewal all the time, because the system in Massachusetts is to the point where if you do anything wrong, or if you're committed against your will, your license is automatically pulled.
What do you think it is about this Parkland shooting that has mobilized so many people? Certainly we've seen school shootings prior to this, but why do you think this particular instance has mobilized so many people?
Well, not to put the tinfoil hat on, but we knew right up front that the other side was ready to mobilize the next time something happened. And they have an agenda, and they get to push their agenda. This is a free society.
That this is not student-led, that there are other people behind this? Is that what you mean when you say you put the tinfoil hat on?
Oh, for a fact, there's huge money behind this. And that's fine, because it's a political system. They have a First Amendment right, just like we do.
There's huge money behind the gun lobby as well, if you're going to subscribe to that. students came out in force, whether it was in this region or in Washington, and spoke their minds.
Yeah.
So, but what are you suggesting with the financial piece behind that? There's money behind any cause.
Sure, yeah, and that's why I'm saying it's fine, because it's part of the political system. But it certainly was not just organic. It's pretty obvious that it wasn't just organic. You can't put that kind of thing together that quickly if it's just students working organically. And again, that's fine. That's what the system is supposed to be about. We can do it, they can do it, other factions can do it, no matter what your political view is on anything. They have the right to do it. Sure, go ahead. But my concern is the momentum and the energy being used where it can actually do good, rather than just continue the same political fight that we seem to be in stalemate.
Yeah, where do you think that there can be some either room for compromise or, as you say, this stalemate. On the face of it, as I look at it and talk with people who, whether you're pro-gun or whether you're pro-stricter gun laws, to me, what I hear underneath all of that is a call for safety, right? So is maybe that where a compromise can be reached? Or if not, where do you think that the stalemate can come to an end and some compromise can be found?
Well, when you talk about these issues, we've had to in the last few years break them down into three categories. If you're talking about specifically gun deaths, is it accidents? Is it suicide, which can also, mental health suicide can also be the Parkland shooter, or is it homicides? And each three take a very different approach to solutions. So the problem is when we get into this screaming match with each other, the two sides polarize and everybody wants one size fits all. We worked very hard, Gold did, in 2014 with the legislature to come up with some pretty decent legislation on all sides of issues. The one thing they did not get into was mental health, because they didn't want to confuse that with, the screaming match over the gun issue. Now, if we're going to address these issues separately, we're very good at having very low accident rates. I mean, maybe 2 a year in Massachusetts.
Even gun deaths overall in Massachusetts, the CDC found in 2015, Massachusetts is the lowest in the country.
Because they're combining all three. Because if you just look at criminal aspects of gun deaths, we're 6 times that of the state of Vermont, and they don't have any gun laws. As long as you meet the federal criteria, you pretty much do what you want. Massachusetts has some of the strictest and most convoluted laws in the nation, and actually gun-related crime deaths have drastically increased since they passed them. So what they do to get to that number of lowest in the nation is to include the suicides. And it's not because the gun laws reduced the gun suicides. It's because New York, Massachusetts, the very urban states have good access to mental health care. Sure. The more rural you get, the higher those numbers go.
I want to talk about polling and get your thoughts on some polling and numbers that came out recently. Mass Inc. said that 69% of people believe that protecting citizens from gun violence should be the most important thing for lawmakers as they consider gun legislation. So what are your thoughts on how to do that?
If you look at some of the areas that have the supposedly best gun laws in the country, Boston, Springfield, Chicago, L.A., Washington, D.C., which, by the way, is the murder capital of the country.
Chicago's gun violence is also quite high.
It's off the rails. But they also have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So something's not working. We're not going after the human element. We go 4 steps forward and argue about the background check, but we're not even having a discussion about how to handle the criminally dangerous in our cities.
For you, you're in Massachusetts, a very liberal state, and as you've pointed out, the gun laws are too stringent here by your estimation.
Well, they're too convoluted, and that's why a lot of times they're not prosecuted, because defense attorneys can tear them apart because there's no sense involved when these things were made.
Where do you think we go next on this issue?
Well, the sad thing is, because it's become such a political issue, it's very tough for those that have supported so-called gun control in the past to come up and recognize that, okay, these aren't working. Maybe these are. Maybe we look at these. But there's no absolute centrist point of view that is going to take an objective look at what we've done and what we haven't done, because now it's a political screaming match about more, regardless if it works or not. And that's the problem. And Goal has made a reputation of being one of those organizations, we want solutions. Matter of fact, most of the crime legislation that took place in 2014 came from us. We were the ones who put in the language about trafficking, about breaking into homes to steal guns. As a matter of fact, just recently, through Representative Joe McKenna, we filed a bill to take the gun trafficking language we got passed in 2014, combine it with the new drug trafficking language, and if you're convicted of both, you can do up to life in prison. That's us. We're looking for solutions, not arguments and raising money.